ever wondered why some people seem to have a gift for music? Have you ever wished that you could play by ear, sing in tune, improvise and jam? You're in the right place. Time to turn those wishes into reality. Welcome to the Musicality Podcast with your host, Christopher Sutton.
In our previous episode with David Asher Brown, we talked a bit about the advantages and drawbacks of learning an instrument online. And this has really been a frequent theme here on the podcast because so many of our guests are doing really terrific work in online music education. Off the top of my head, I can remember discussing it in our episodes with Jeremy Burns and Matthew Scott Phillips from Music Student 101, with Chris Owenby from Practice Habits, with Professor Anders Ericsson, author of the book Peak, and with Dave Isaacs, the guitar guru of Nashville, and I'm sure there were several more. As was probably clear from my conversations with them all, and the very fact that I myself run Musical U, an online musicality training provider, I really believe in the enormous potential and value in online training for music. The trouble is that online music education, and online education in general, is still at a very early stage. It's only really in the last 5 or 10 years that someone wanting to learn an instrument or develop their musical ear or study up on music theory has had the option not just to learn in person or study themselves with books, but to go online for live one-to-one video lessons or use extensive multimedia and interactive training material. Clearly there's a massive opportunity there, but if you've ever explored this yourself, you'll know that it's all too easy to spend a lot of time and even a lot of money and have very little to show for it at the end. Have you ever bought a course online and then not finished it? Maybe you only ever looked at the first few lessons, or maybe you watched it all but never actually put it into practice. I know that I've certainly done that more than a few times. Or maybe you've tried to stick to free stuff, and you've spent hours researching and finding and gathering all these great web pages and resources, but then your enthusiasm fizzles out because it all seems too overwhelming and jumbled. I'm guilty of that one too. You know there's an opportunity there, but how do you turn the incredible availability of great learning resources into a learning process that actually happens and actually delivers you the results you've been craving? In this episode, I'm going to make some suggestions based on our experience at Musical U. You won't be surprised to hear that these are all things we've baked into our training system at Musical U, and if you're looking for musicality training like playing by ear, improvising, singing in tune, tightening up your rhythm, and so on, then please do consider Musical U. But what I'm going to be talking about today applies to any kind of online music learning, including learning to play an instrument. And actually, it pretty much all goes for any online course, not just music. We're going to talk a bit about how to choose a suitable course to maximize your odds of success. And then in a future episode, we'll discuss how to make the most of the course and actually get results with it. So with the incredible range of options available to you online, how do you pick the right music course? Specifically, how do you pick one which is most likely to actually get you results, rather than just seeming flashy and exciting, but not actually delivering a good learning experience? Here are 3 important criteria I think you should keep in mind. First things first, make sure that the course is really well aligned with your true musical goal. That might sound obvious, but I think we've all had that experience where we start looking for something online, and a few hours later, we've explored and unpacked the topic in so many directions, and we've heard so many opinions about the right way to learn it, or what you should learn first, and so on, that it can be easy to end up thinking you should go off and learn X, even though it was really Y that had you excited to begin with. That's not to say that you can't learn valuable things about how best to pursue your goal by doing research. A lot of the guidance we provide to members at Musical U is helping them unpack what we call your big picture vision, and then figure out what concrete training is going to get them there. But what I want to suggest to you is that you make sure you don't get sidetracked. Don't end up with a laundry list of skills and topics and essential prerequisites that actually end up sapping your enthusiasm and making the whole thing feel untenable. And don't get tempted by a course that looks shiny and useful, but isn't actually what you'd set out to look for. If you want to know more about goal setting and planning, I'm going to link in the show notes to an interview I did on Brent Vaartstra's Learn Jazz Standards podcast, where we talk all about that, and I think it would be a helpful framework for you to have in mind before you set out to find a course. So that's the first criterion. Make sure the course is aligned with your real musical goal. The second criterion is to find a course that's flexible. I could spend a whole episode or 3 ranting about the problems with the course model for online learning, and I hesitated to even use the word course in this episode, because in learning music, and doubly so in musicality training, having a single, one-size-fits-all, straight-line course where you have to go lesson by lesson in a certain strict order almost never works. And I think this is a huge part of why course completion rates are so low. People are coming in with wildly varying backgrounds and goals and abilities, and trying to force them all to follow the same strict path is just a recipe for frustration. So you want to find a course that's flexible, ideally one that's modular, meaning that learning a skill involves a combination of different modules, and you have some control to choose the ones which best match your needs and desires, and assemble them in a way that makes most sense for you. And whether it's modular or not, you want it to be flexible in the sense of not restricting your progress. If you're too advanced for certain sections, you shouldn't have to plod through them getting bored. And if you're struggling in a certain area, you shouldn't be forced to master it before you're able to move on in some way. You'll probably want a course that's self-paced, meaning you don't have to complete a certain lesson by a certain date. Or if you're actually someone who really thrives on deadlines, you might prefer a week-by-week course that helps you keep moving forwards. To give a few examples from Musical U, we have almost no prerequisites on our modules, so while we do recommend certain sequences that make sense, if you want or need to leave out a module, or if you haven't quite mastered it, you can still move on with your overall training. All of our quizzes have a pass mark not of 100%, but of 80%, which shows that you've got the hang of the skill, even if you haven't pushed your learning to the point of perfection. And for most people, the point of perfection also equals the point of total boredom in your training. And of course, the whole system is modular, so while our roadmaps mimic the straight-line course, and you get a nice clear route forwards, how you choose to follow that path is entirely flexible and personalizable. So you want to look for a course where you can be confident that if things don't magically go 100% perfectly all the time, you won't feel stuck, limited, bored, or frustrated. You'll have some flexibility to continue your learning and maintain your enthusiasm and your success. The third criterion I'd suggest is that you want a course which provides great support. Again, this might seem like a no-brainer, not least because almost all courses online will make a point of offering some kind of support. But you might be surprised. For a start, there are still a ton which provide only technical support. For example, most mobile apps are like this. If something's broken, then they might respond and help you. But if you're just stuck with your training, there's really no way to get help. Or many online courses will offer a way to contact the course creator if you have questions. But frankly, that's just not good enough. Because in my experience, most adult learners are really hesitant to make use of that. For myself, for example, I'm not a particularly shy person. I'm happy posting online and so on. But if I get stuck in an online course, am I going to write an email to the course creator asking for help? Probably not. I like to think of myself as independent. And in honesty, I think I'd be a bit embarrassed to admit that I hadn't managed to learn the thing myself. I would assume that the course probably works well for everyone else, so it's my fault, not the course's, and so on. I've found that most of us, I think, are like that. We've been preconditioned by the educational system to think that if we're not learning, it's our fault, and we need to try harder. Which means we're not going to really make use of an on-demand support option like that. So what does great support look like? Well, it's more proactive than that. It's about providing a way for you to receive help without needing to summon up the courage and have the self-awareness and confidence to actually ask for help. And I should mention there that often the problem is we don't even know how to ask for help. We know we're stuck, but sometimes the very problem is that we're not sure what's gone wrong. So that can make it really hard to send a message asking for help. The kind of proactive support I'm talking about means that you're part of a community in some way. you're visible to the course instructor without needing to consciously step forwards with a question. At Musical U, we do this very much through having an online community with discussion boards and a way to post updates about your training. And it means our team can essentially keep an eye on our members. Not in a creepy way, and not in an annoying way, just, for example, so that if someone's clearly making great progress, but then suddenly goes quiet for a week, or they're posting updates but sounding increasingly frustrated, we can step in and help them solve the problem, often before they'd even realize there was really a problem there. I know that people considering Musical U are often confused why we make a fuss about all the community stuff when it's the training they're really interested in. But the truth is that the community is the secret sauce that helps us offer fantastic support and help our members get results in their training. It's not a distraction from training, it's an accelerator for it. So that's one way to provide great support. And I'd encourage you to really ask yourself when considering an online course, what will I do when I get stuck? Because if the answer is, I'll probably just stay quiet and give up, or I'll send a message and hope to get a reply, then I would say that the support on offer is not really enough to help you succeed with that course. So those are the big 3 criteria I wanted to suggest. Choose a course that's well aligned with your real musical goals, one that's flexible in the way you move forwards in your learning, and one which provides great support, not just an email address or a way to send a message. Now, there are, of course, a ton of other things to consider, but I think you're probably already aware of those. Things like price, convenience, the format of the material, the trustworthiness and expertise of the provider, and so on. It's not an easy choice to make, so if you can find a provider that ticks all the boxes and provides a range of training, not just a single course, that's a really big advantage too. I hope that helps you to choose your online music courses in a way that leads to greater success for you in the future. And in a part 2 episode, we're going to address just that. Once you've selected a course, what can you do to maximize your chances of succeeding with it?
Thank you for listening to the Musicality Podcast. This episode has ended, but your musical journey continues. Head over to musicalitypodcast.com, where you will find the links and resources mentioned in this episode, as well as bonus content exclusive for podcast listeners. That's musicalitypodcast.com.